morning, Venerables. Good morning, friends. My name is Xiǎnchū Cory. Today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. We normally talk a lot about compassion, tolerance, and I'm going to focus more on something a little bit more destructive. I'm going to be discussing anger today. Buddhists in general, we tend to think that they don't get angry, but even the Dalai Lama himself has admitted that he gets angry sometimes. So we have to ask ourselves, is there really hope for us to prevent anger in our lives? So anger is just a normal human feeling. It is an inherent aspect of being human. The issue is not the emotion of anger itself, but rather how we respond to it. Anger is one of the three root causes in Buddhism that causes suffering. It is considered one of the worst emotions and can cause harm to those who dwell in it. It is said to be the source of all other negative emotions. It's also one of the hardest emotions to overcome. But there seems to be a lot of confusion around anger and why it is such a negative emotion. So in anger in Buddhism, it's a mind state. In this sense, it's an emotion, which is characterized by aversion or dislike or something of a desire to harm or possibly seek revenge. It's also considered a mental state. In this sense, it's considered an intention. It causes a powerful physical reaction. Buddhism holds that anger is responsible for many unwholesome actions. It creates an obstacle to develop loving kindness and compassion that we speak so much about. The biggest thing is anger is a hindrance. It's considered a defilement. It's considered an emotional affliction that are the root causes of suffering. Anger is the natural consequence to hatred, aversion, and ignorance. In other words, anger is an emotional reaction to an unpleasant experience. Anger arises when we are attached to a particular outcome, a particular self-centeredness, or particular expectation. The Buddhist view on anger. We all know that there are many ways to interpret anger. It is an unpleasant emotion, it's a mental state, it's a strong feeling, a strong desire to seek vengeance, provocation. Perhaps you're wanting an insult, displeasure. It could be a contest or a competition. On a grander scale, it's starting riots, disputes, quarrels, arguments, offense, wars. Anger has many forms and many levels of intensity. We can hold it as a mild irritation, a mild dislike, a resentment, maybe just a grudge, jealousy, hostility, hatred, rage, and wrath. Again, I'm emphasizing that this is one of the greatest negativities in Buddhism. It's one of the most destructive. You cannot remove anger with anger. The Buddha taught that we need to let go of anger and blame and develop a mind of loving kindness, a mind of compassion to diffuse our anger. This is the only way we will be able to help others. It's hard to control anger when we get it. However, we can try to control our anger through practice, and we can learn to relax and practice mindful breathing and meditation to calm our mind. So just as the Buddha said, the mind is everything. What you think, you become. Which reminds me of a Dhammapada verse that I quoted in an earlier talk this year. It's one of my favorites. Mind precedes all knowables. Mind's their chief. Mind-made are they. If with a corrupted mind one should either speak or act, suffering will follow, caused by that, as does the wheel of the ox's hoof. If we're to explain this, all that we experience begins with our thought. Then into our words, into our deeds, and our actions. They all spring forth from that thought. If we speak or act with evil or hatred or anger, unpleasant circumstances and experiences are inevitably going to result. Wherever we go, we create bad circumstances because we carry bad thoughts. This is very much like the wheel of the cart following the hoof of the ox, yoked to the cart. The cart wheel, along with the heavy load of the cart, keeps following the drop oxen. The animal is bound to this heavy load and cannot leave. If we think angry thoughts, it is inevitable that our mind becomes tense and irritated. By changing the way you think, you will accomplish the things that anger has kept you from doing. In Buddhism, it teaches us that overcoming anger by overcoming our ignorance. And anger is the greatest negativity. Anger impedes us from becoming enlightened. The Buddha's disciples were taught that anger is derived from ignorance due to our lack of understanding of the true nature of the world. The concept of anatta, which translates into non-self, is used to show our ignorance of the true nature of things. Briefly, non-self means that there is not a permanent self or a permanent essence to our being. And I'm going to discuss this a little bit further later on. The problem with anger is that it gets the best of us. Now our goal is not to overcome anger, but to live in a peaceful world. What does Buddhism say about anger? Buddhists believe that anger comes with anger comes suffering. All beings with anger cause suffering to themselves and those around them. Even if you think keeping it to yourself, people who know you are going to know that you are suffering. Loved ones and people who care about you will worry. In Buddhism, we strive to eliminate it. Anger refers to any counterproductive state of mind. It hurts us because it makes us act in ways that become harmful. The Buddha also said that anger is the cause of all evil. It is the reason why the world is so full of hate. It is why the world has so many wars. Anger causes us so much destruction because it is powerful. It's an extremely potent energy. And when it's unleashed, it can cause so much pain and suffering. So I was reading Bhikkhu Bodhi's, the Buddhist teachings on social and communal harmony, which is what our focus is this year. And to quote it, the first excerpt from his section on anger is, among the mental defilements disruptive to social harmony, probably the most pernicious is anger, since virtually all communities, including Buddhist monasteries, consist of people still prone to egotistical desires. They are in a constant danger of being riven by anger, resentment, and vindictiveness to their members. For this reason, the control of anger is critical to communal harmony. The Buddha recognizes that while giving vent to anger brings a certain degree of satisfaction, he points out that angry outbursts ultimately bounce back upon oneself, entailing direct harm for oneself and entangling one in conflict with others. We can see that anger occurs in different degrees, with distinguishing different types of people. There are 3 different types based on their relationship to their anger. Those who often get angry and nurture their anger are like a line that is etched in stone. Those who often get angry but quickly dispel their anger are like a line drawn on the ground. And those who resist patiently, even when attacked by others, are like a line drawn in water. So since the Buddha seeks solution to human problems with the aid of principle and causality, to help us understand more clearly why anger arises, he lays out 10 ground resentment, which he enumerates with his customary thoroughness and precision. The 10 are attained by taking first one's reactions to those who act for one's harm, next one's reactions to those who act for one's friends, and next one's reactions to those who act for one's benefit of foes. Now, if you take those three and he divided them into the 3 periods of time, past lives, present life, and future, it gives you a total of 9. And finally, the Buddha adds irrational anger, the vexing cause of one who becomes angry without reason. Now, this is all brought from the Bhikkhu Bodhi's book, the Buddha's teachings on social communal harmony. The establishment of communal harmony requires that the members of the community strive to overcome anger. The first step is removing anger lies in reflecting on the dangers in which the anger causes. Because anger poses such a formidable threat to one's being, the Buddha proposes a variety of methods removing. So the Anguttara Nikaya, and if you ever want to look up Buddhist texts, just if you Google Nikayas, there's a whole bunch of them. There's middle length, long, short. These are all commentaries on the talks the Buddha has given. He broke down the 3 kinds of persons. Monks, there are 3 kinds of persons found existing in the world. What 3? The person who is like a line etched in stone, the person who is like a line etched in the ground, and the person who is like a line etched in water, which I mentioned earlier. And what kind of person is like a line etched in stone? Here, some person often gets angry, and his anger often persists for a long time. Just like a line etched in stone is not quickly erased by the wind and water, but persists for a long time, so too, some person often gets angry, and his anger persists for a long time. This is called a person who is like a line etched in stone. And what kind of person is like a line etched in the ground? Here, some people often get angry, but his anger does not persist for a long time. Just as a line etched in the ground is quickly erased by the wind and water and does not persist for a long time, so too, some person often gets angry, but his anger does not persist for a long time. This is called the person who is like a line etched in the ground. And what kind of person is like a line etched in water? Here, some person, even when spoken to roughly and harshly, in disagreeable ways, remains on friendly terms with this antagonist, mingles with him and greets him, just as a line etched in water quickly disappears and does not persist for a long time. So too, some person, even when spoken to roughly and harshly, in disagreeable ways, remains on friendly terms with his antagonist, mingles with him and greets him. This is called the person who is like a line etched in water. These monks are the 3 kinds of persons found in the existing world. So I don't feel like these need further explanation. It's pretty simple that there are people out there who hold on to anger and become angry. There are those who become angry, acknowledge their anger and let it go. And there are those who do not get angry at all. The Buddhists believe that there are great dangers of being controlled by our anger. Anger can damage the person physically, mentally, spiritually. So it is important to control it. Buddhism teaches some practices to control anger. With the right understanding, you can let go of your anger. Since your mind is a powerful thing, you should start to change your thinking process and develop a more positive outlook in life. If you can develop a more positive attitude, you would be able to think about working on your anger issues without feeling too overwhelmed. We should always be aware of our emotions. We should watch our negative ones closely as they arise, and watch them dissolve. Buddhists believe that by observing our own emotions, we can gain insight into the nature of our own mind. Sadness, fear, desire, envy, and even affliction or love can be distorted into anger. The key to controlling anger is to understanding that all negative emotions come from a self-centeredness. Buddhism teaches that the only way to get rid of oneself of anger is to stop looking at things in a personal term. All things happen according to the laws of cause and condition. Since everything falls under this law, it is fruitless to be angry. It is fruitless to take revenge. Anger is one of the most common emotions that we experience. It causes confusion, causes hatred, and most importantly, suffering. And these are all things that we want to avoid to have a good life, right? So there's specific guidelines on how to handle anger so that you can be happier and less stressed. So how to deal with anger? The first step is to learn how to conquer anger by specifically non-anger. Don't beat yourself up when you get angry. Angry does not get better with more anger. Anger is a kind of fire, hence the theme of my slides, that burns your body, and as a result, you suffer. So the Buddha suggests that instead of pushing this fire, you can try to use water. When you feel angry, you should use the power of loving kindness instead of using anger. When you practice, you will find it easier and easier. It's not an immediate result. You can't just wake up tomorrow and be like, you know what? I'm just going to be practicing loving kindness today. Buddhist teachings on anger encourage the control of anger through non-anger. Be mindful of your anger, and when it arises, send it compassion, send it loving kindness. You can notice when it arises and start to analyze it before it grows out of control and before it controls you. Buddhists believe that all worldly beings are suffering from three root causes of suffering. These are called the three poisons. These are the three root or deepest delusions that are based in our insecurity, our fear, and our unhappiness. These three root poisons are greed, hatred, and ignorance. Hatred is also anger. So these are all of thoughts, and our thoughts can be changed. And like I said before, anger is tied to ignorance, which can be changed by gaining greater knowledge. By gaining this knowledge, the anger starts to dissipate because the root cause has been found and resolved. Anger is also the root cause of much negative karma that we create. In a lot of cases, it results in killing, it results in stealing, it results in sexual misconduct, telling lies, engaging in slander, abusive speech, hurting others, gossiping, just harsh speech, and wrong views. And this is why conquering anger is more important. In Buddhist teachings, it's described as a poison that must be drained from your heart for a person to find satisfaction. The mind can be ruined from anger. It doesn't just destroy ourselves, it destroys those that are near to us. So how do you deal with a world full of anger, though? You can get on Facebook and see it. You can get into chat rooms and see it. You can literally go anywhere and see anger in others. We see a world that is full of suffering. Well, we can start by making the world a better place by dealing with our own anger, by not contributing to it. The wise and compassionate way of dealing with anger is to let it go. Find things to replace it. In fact, anger is like a knot in the heart that we need to open up. And how do we open the knot? Again, by training in non-anger. We train in metta, we train in loving kindness and compassion. Anger is a symptom. It is the signal that something is wrong. Then we need to take a deeper look and identify what's causing it. We need to guard against becoming angry. One of the biggest steps is to be mindful of it. through mindfulness, we realize that we have these negative emotions arising, that we have anger. And anger is a reality. But like everything else in Buddhism, it is impermanent. Anger can also affect us in our health. High blood pressure, increase in anxiety. And anger is difficult enough to deal with just on your own. But other people will have to deal with it as well, especially if it grows out of control. So how do we deal with anger? There was an 8th century Buddhist scholar, Shantideva, described anger as the most extreme negative force, one with the capability of destroying the good that we have worked so hard to create. One moment of anger combined with access to a gun can completely change someone's future. From a life of freedom to a life behind bars. A more everyday example would be how anger can destroy a friendship and trust that might have taken decades to build up. Ultimately, anger is more dangerous than all the world's bombs and guns and knives put together. So one way to deal with anger is to develop patience. Disturbing emotions are best overcome through their opponent. Fighting fire with fire simply doesn't work. Fighting anger with anger isn't going to work. It's impossible for our minds to hold two opposing emotions simultaneously. You can tell or yell at someone and be patient with them at the same time, or you can't yell at somebody and be patient at the same time. Think about it when you call like customer service, when you get the automated phone system and you're yelling at the phone that you want a representative. As soon as that representative comes on the phone, you're already mad at that representative. They have nothing to do with their automated system. They're just there trying to do their job. But the way you ask for a representative to an automated phone system is a good first step on dealing with anger. Patience is often seen by many as a sign of weakness, where you let others walk over you and you get away, and they get away with whatever they want. Reality, however, couldn't be more different. When we're frustrated, how easy is it for us to just scream, slap, shout, slam something, and just how difficult is it to stay calm, control our emotions, remain patient? Following our feelings wherever they lead us does not make us heroes, it makes us weak. You get caught in an emotional wave. So next time you're on the verge of screaming your head off, draw your sword of patience. Cut the head off of the anger itself. How do you draw that sword, though? Well, that's why we meditate. You can start by taking deep breaths, focusing on that. Become more pinpointed on something else other than the anger and the negative emotion that is arising in your mind. There's been anecdotes of sharp breaths we take when we get angry. There's been the count to 10 that we all have heard. If we notice ourselves become tense, we can slowly just start counting. This will help us from saying things that we will possibly regret. If you're already in a direct confrontation with somebody and the anger has already arisen before you even knew what happened, you can remove yourself from the situation and address it before or later, before the situation goes downhill. Each situation is different. So you will need to use your brain, you will need to use wisdom to see which one works best. But most importantly, it's to acknowledge that the anger has arisen and not let it control you. Another method of dealing with anger is meditation and mindfulness practice. one of the most beneficial things that we can do. We can be in touch with our mind. We can see things arise as they do before they take control of us. Buddhist meditation is really a preparation for real life. It's no good if we do a metta meditation or a loving kindness meditation every morning, and then as soon as we get into work, we're just angry with the employees. In fact, we had to go to work in the first place. You meditate on that, and then you put it into practice. And the more we meditate, and the more we practice on that, the more our mind becomes familiar with those things. The more our mind becomes familiar with patience, the more our mind becomes compassionate. And then the great thing is meditation is something that we can really just find any place, anytime, and do it. You can spend 5 minutes sitting in the passenger seat of a car. If we spend a half an hour of our morning commuting to work, listening to our favorite tunes, surely we can find 10 minutes somewhere along the rest of the day to generate loving kindness and compassion. Something as simple as doing the opposite is a good anecdote for anger. When we're angry with somebody, our urge is to get revenge, be spiteful. And what result does that yield us? If anything, we're more miserable than we started before it. It sounds crazy, but think of your object that has caused you anger and turn it into your teacher. If you want to be better, be more patient, be more loving, be kinder, be happier to people, then we need to practice patience and practice. And practicing with the object of our anger as our teacher is going to be quite powerful. It all takes time and effort to become a world-class football player or a violinist. So why would it be any different with our mental exercises? We're always surrounded by things that make us angry. We can always turn those things into teachers. You're not always going to be in a situation where you're surrounded by people that 100% agree with you and want everything that you want. We will always have these top challenges. We will always have these teachers in front of us. And these teachers, they turn into something that becomes precious to you. The person that you once got angry with now becomes precious because they've given you something valuable. They've given you the opportunity to really practice. Another way of dealing with anger is impermanence. Bluntly, we're all impermanent. We will all perish. We will all die. I will die. We're all going to. So when that person we just can't stand does something that truly annoys us, truly makes us angry, stop and think. When I'm on my deathbed, will I care? The answer, unless we know the person personally and on a deeper relationship, is really hell-bent on taking over or destroying your world, will probably be a resounding no. Seems simple enough. We all know that we are impermanent, but it's not something we obviously think about often. You know, we hope that death is a abstract, faraway concept for ourselves. The old, the sick, and those involved in, accidents, those are something that are a little bit closer in time to us, but you hope that's not our reality. That's not my reality. young people dying before old people, it happens. But, you know, we sit here thinking that we're healthy and we're going to exist for a long time. And when we focus on our future in a year, 50 years from now, you can think that the things that set us off now, are they really going to matter then? Maybe they'll bring a little bit of an annoyance, but we can also see that there was no point in getting as angry as we once were. And the biggest thing I'm going to focus on how to deal with our anger is emptiness, the non-self. This is an extremely tough subject in Buddhism. While patience is a direct antidote, emptiness is the strongest. Not just to anger, but a lot of our difficulties, our hardships in life can be overcome by understanding emptiness. In fact, it doesn't even matter how patient we are. If we have understood emptiness, our voidness that we have, problems will continue to rain upon us like a monsoon. The next time you get angry, take a moment to analyze your mind when you are angry. We'll notice a pattern, a strong sense of me, a strong sense of I. I'm so angry because I didn't get such and such. I'm so angry because somebody said this. I can't believe what they did to me. Or I'm definitely right, they're definitely wrong. Me. That's the thing. When we're angry, we've got the perfect chance to analyze this I, this me, this my, that appears so concretely in almost every angry situation. I'm not saying we don't exist or nothing that matters, but that when we try to find this I, it is in our mind. It is our body, it's in both. There's no way that we can say, yes, there it is. The fact is that we are this ever-evolving, changing, impermanent existence. There is no essence to us. There's no permanence to us. It's difficult to comprehend. But if you start to analyze it in reality, it can radically change your perspective. You'll see that there's really nothing that you can pinpoint specifically to be angry about if you remove the I or the me from the situation. Tricycle Magazine, I read an article recently that explained emptiness in relationship to anger. Say, for instance, you are meditating, and all of a sudden you get this emotion of anger towards a family member, say your mom. Immediately, the mind's reaction is to definitely identify that anger as my anger and to say that I am angry. And it elaborates to the feeling of either working into the story of some sort of relationship with this family member, your mother, or your general views about when you were angry towards your mother and how they were justified. But the problem is, from the Buddhist perspective, and that these stories and views entail suffering and lots of it, the more you get involved in them, the more you get distracted from actually seeing the cause of the suffering. It's the sense of I, the sense of me, and the sense of my mother or my family member that has upset me. That the whole process is set in motion, starting with the sense of self. In fact, I've been emphasizing, I didn't get what I want. This person did this to me, or it's always me, mine, or some sort of expectation that was not met that you had in your head, or something you didn't want to happen, happened. But everything's impermanent. In Buddhism, that teaches us that human anger comes from our own perceptions. which were often skewed from our reality. If we take a step back from our anger, we would see that anger in reality is just a big waste of time. We let it dictate our actions. We suffer because of these actions. And rarely does anger solve problems. Remember the next time you ask for customer service to an automated phone system, how you ask for a representative. The last thing I'll add for, as a layperson, as a sentient being, emotions, they're normal. We're going to have a full range of emotions, and that's okay. I want to focus real quickly on a brief polyword, bhavana. It has many meanings, but in this case, it means I want to translate it into becoming. When you get these emotions as they arise, anger or hostile emotions, it's okay to experience them. Don't become them. Acknowledge their existence and find a way to let them go. Thank you.